there he was. Peter Isoka was right. You know, you need to, you know, in these things, if you want to criticize somebody, it's just like a hair. You might hate a hair, but you need to have the honesty and the courage to say it runs better than other animals. Then I think Peter Isoka might be pulling the veil toward him or toward Cameroon, but he was correct. But then I think Peter Isoka and the government of Cameroon needs to understand that arresting journalists, refusing some subjects, some themes, you don't have to talk about secession, you don't have to talk about federalism, you don't have to talk about so and so thing. I think that's where Peter Isoka, who is somebody I respect very much, but I understand that he has a sledgehammer over his head, dangling over his head, and he has to dance according to the tunes of his bosses. But then they need to work.
Which was not supposed to be the case.
Which was not supposed to be the case, because this is not a democracy, my dear brother. This is a kleptocracy, which is a kind of a notch upper than dictatorial regimes. It is a kleptocracy, and in kleptocracies, all institutions are under the mantle or the direction of one man, who is the President of the Republic. So I think that's why the hands of Peter Isoka are tied. So on that assessment of the evaluation of the Reporters Without Borders, Peter Isoka was through and through correct. But that doesn't mean that Cameroon is better off. Cameroon has to do more. Arresting journalists willy-nilly as they are doing is unfair. Threatening to withdraw licenses to media houses is unwarranted. When you call owners of media houses and say, I don't want this person to come and participate in so and so program, it shows that you are not free. What are they afraid of? Allow people to express themselves, because when people express themselves openly, then you can know how to respond to them. But when they are doing what they are doing, the government of Cameroon, it simply means that they have something to hide. When you have Chiruma Bakari, the spokesman of the government of Cameroon, organizing a press conference to attack a single newspaper called Jeune Afrique, then there is a problem. We have to allow people to express themselves openly, and I think freedom of speech is a good thing, it's a prerequisite for a democracy. If there's no freedom of speech in a country, or if it is cherry-picked, as it is the case in Cameroon, then we are not yet a free country, we are not yet a democracy, a liberal democracy. When I was talking about liberal democracy, I didn't mean about ideology. I meant that a liberal democracy is a democracy whereby people are free to express themselves, there are protection of minorities, there is alternation of power, and there's freedom of speech. That is a liberal democracy. An electoral democracy in which we are is where we know that, well, let's go and organize an election as we are going to organize in 2018, and that Paul Biya once again is going to win. That is what you call electoral democracy, and then a liberal democracy. I want Cameroon to become a liberal democracy where journalists will not be arrested as it is the case currently.
Now, before we go, it is a running subject, the Anglophone crisis, what has been termed today the Anglophone crisis. Archbishop Samuel Cleda is now moving in some towns in the northwest and southwest regions. He was in Manfe, Kumba, Boya, Bamenda, to meet with stakeholders in the education sector, especially the lecture. When you look at the Anglophone crisis today, where it started and where it is now, what can you say, what would be your reaction as far as the role of the government and even the role of the church?
The role of the government has been sheer incompetence, primitive, mendacious. So they have done nothing. They have just been, you know, this government, you have a set of ignorant and arrogant people governing them. So that's the reason why this thing became what it has become. But then I think the government of Cameroon underestimated the unity and the resolve of the Anglophones, because I would like to say it once again here. What happens in Victoria or in Manfe or in Fruawa is not what it has nothing to do with what happens in Yabasi, because people want to compare. Okay, there's no road. Yabasi is just 60 kilometers from Douala. There's no road in Yabasi. Well, Yabasi, for 1 month there was no light. People never complain. That is their problem. But Anglophone Cameroon was a country, for Christ's sake. And nobody can change that. As long as they don't want to accept it, there's always going to be a problem. And my other take is that my fear, I can now become a prophet of doom, but I will say, do you know why Ethiopia got disintegrated? Eritrea left Ethiopia simply because the fundamental law of Ethiopia was violated by Haile Selassie in 1963, and the Eritrean Liberation Front was created. And when the Tigray Liberation Front came to power after they overthrew Mengistu, led by Meles Zenawi, a referendum was organized, and the Eritrean Liberation Front opted for independence. In 1972, if my memory is not wrong, when Nimeri decided to do away with the autonomy of South Sudan and decided to send John Garang to quell the Anya rebellion, gave rise to the Sudan Liberation Army led by John Garang. And at the end, in 2011, South Sudan disintegrated. So my prediction for Cameroon, it is dire if the government of Cameroon continue to behave arrogantly, ignorantly, and are not humble enough. And I think we have 2 more decades to be here again as one nation. So the thing is very bad. You cannot continue to behave the way they are behaving that way. As for Monsignor Cleda, it's a pity that he's going to be humiliated because his posture is different from what the Bamenda Ecclesiastic Province had published. That is the rule, and that is where the government of Cameroon needs to stick. Anything short of that is not going to work. I'm sorry to say it, I'm saying you my mind. I'm not a politician. I'll not come here like you have the bourgeoisie, comprador, collaborationists, Anglophones who are in Yaoundé, who lie perpetually about the reality. The reality is that the people in southern Cameroon are fed up with the whole system today in this country. And it is, honestly, I think the process is irreversible. It can be corrected if the rightful decisions are taken. For example, free Mr. Paul. What the hell has he done? Free people like Fontaine, free people like Agbobala. They haven't done anything. They have been arrested simply because they are defending a just cause. Allow people like Bob Gahamoni who are abroad to come back into their country. That is how you do. But unfortunately, we have a country with such a corrupt group of so-called elites who are not patriotic, who do not love this country. And that's the reason why I think the beginning of the end has just started.
Now, when you look at the role of the church, before we go, when you look at the role of the church in the Democratic Republic of Congo, very powerful. They have even recently, the Catholic bishops have called for the resumption of dialogue. When you look at Cameroon and the role of the church, do you think that politically bishops are equally playing politics under the table?
Yes. For example, thank you very much for bringing up the DRC. Yes, look at how the Episcopal Church, I don't know how they call it, the church in the DRC has done. And when you compare with the Church of Cameroon, the Catholic Church, it's at variance. If you look at the position of the Bamenda Ecclesiastic Province, it's different. If you look at the general posture that is
the National Episcopal Conference,
a National Episcopal Conference represented by Monsignor Samuel Cleda, it is a disgrace. It is a shame for him to come back today to tell people to go back to school when the enabling environments are not there. Then he is a disgrace. And I'm afraid, because let him borrow a leaf from the DRC Episcopal Conference, then humility warrants that let him come here on your set, that he can accept that he has failed. It shows that we are two different people. He doesn't live in southern Cameroon. He doesn't know what people down there are feeling. He is behaving as though he's being manipulated. I'm sorry about that. I used to have a great respect for him, but I feel that he has really disappointed. The church has a role. He needs to learn from Bishop Ndokmo. Bishop Ndokmo was a patriot, and he could not have acted the way he has acted. He has to learn from his eminence, Cardinal Tumi. And he is not learning. Well, maybe he's under pressure, but I think he's going to fail like all others. Schools have to resume, right? But the enabling environment needs to be put in place. Free those who have been arrested. And then you remove those your forces of insecurity who maim and rape and they are not punished. But then people who are there to defend their rights are arrested and thrown into jail. It's unfair. So I think the church has a role to play. They have a moral authority to play. But what he is doing is that he is going to disgrace the church. He is going to divide the National Episcopal Conference of his country along linguistic grounds, which is unfair, which is uncalled for. And I think I don't know what happened to him. I don't know the type of terminological definition to describe what he has just done.
Okay, it was a pleasure having you in this day's edition of the program, Ellie Smith. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. Whenever I am invited, I will always report for duty, and I always like to speak my mind. I'm not a politician. I like to say what I think. It might please some, or it might not, but I don't know. I got nothing to lose. What I got is just to speak the truth.
Just to know that you have been very keen as far as this Anglophone crisis is concerned since it began.
Yes, because, you know, for example, there are things I don't like. I don't like injustices, and the Anglophones have been marginalized in this country for too long. They have been considered like second-class citizens. And let me give you an example before we conclude. Whenever the Anglophones want something in this country, it is given, but after they have been massacred, humiliated. The GCE board, after they have killed a number of Anglophones, was created. As vicious and untrustworthy as this government is, when the GCE board was created, they never even gave the money. And go and look for Mr. Lawrence Thatcher and Andrew Wara, Azong Wara Andrew. They will tell you what happened, how untrustworthy these people are. They are vicious. They gave out the GCE board no money. It was Tasha Lawrence, the owner of Amity Bank, that has been destroyed and given to Atlantic Bank. You can ask him. I'm not inventing anything. Ask Azong Wara Andrew how it happened. Now we have achieved it. Now and again, we want some Anglophones want just the respect of the common law system, because in this union, through and through, the Anglophones have lost. The only thing that the Anglophones will not bargain or accept to trade it is the educational system and their legal system. That has to be made abundantly clear.
Thank you. We'd like to have you some other time again.
Thank you.
It was equally a pleasure being with you in tonight's edition of the program, The Insight on Equinox Television. If you did enjoy the program, book another rendezvous with us next week Sunday, same time, 6:30 p.m., same channel, Equinox Television. Good night.